Want to go ahead and shoot into something a bit different today. I've not opened up about this side of my life on this channel before, mostly just because that's not what I really want this channel to be about. This channel for me is largely about getting in touch with your authentic self, expressing yourself honestly and authentically, and partially just being kind of a diary for certain things that I'm learning and that I'm experiencing in life right now, and being able to pass forth what's valuable about that to me, to you, in a way that's genuine to me. That's really why I do express this. That's why I keep making these videos, and that's what feels most natural for me. Having said that, though, I have made videos like the past one I made about why it can be so difficult for men to open up and be vulnerable, or getting in touch with your authentic feelings and masculinity as a man. And that got me thinking that a huge part of this journey for me has actually been dating and relationships. And the way that I've gone about that is by doing cold approach a lot of the time. I don't like the game community a lot. I don't really have anything against it. It's just not my cup of tea. I find that a lot of the content's it's a bit dense, to be honest. It kind of has a lot of that red pill stuff woven into it. And again, don't have anything against that. Just personally not my cup of tea. I'm probably a bit more fluid and effeminate than that crowd mostly. But nevertheless, I've had social anxiety a lot of my life. Earlier on in life, I just found it incredibly difficult to communicate and talk to people, even people I knew. I found it very, very difficult to open up and be really honest with them. And that's got better over the years. But one of the things that I found was really kicking me, particularly when I was in my early 20s, 22, 23, I'm 26 now, was dating. Was going out and being able to talk to and attract the kind of women who I was really interested in. This was something that I knew that I needed to understand more, but it was also something that was very, very intimidating to me. And actually, the reason I got into doing cold approach initially was I was in a long-term relationship, and that relationship it didn't end on terrible terms, but I was just feeling I felt like by the end of that relationship, we were both staying in it because we were just afraid of being alone, and not because it's what we really wanted. And I just realized that I didn't want to keep doing the whole meeting a couple people here and there through friends. I don't like online dating. It's just not really my cup of tea. It never has been. And I just realized for me to be able to have the kind of relationships that I want in my life, I need to be able to take this into my own hands more. So I started looking up things about pickup, cold approach, that whole thing. And again, a lot of the ideologies that were woven up in it, I didn't like, but I saw that there was value in being able to get yourself to the point where you could go and communicate with anyone. And this would extend beyond just meeting women. This would also be being able to go to a social situation with your friends and to be a bit more vocal and to have a bit more fun and to open up more, or to not feel like you shouldn't speak up with little things, like maybe someone overcharged you for a coffee and then you wouldn't go back. But nowadays that's not really as much of a problem through this a lot of the time, through actually going out and doing, I want to say, over 1,000 different approaches. Now I've done it in different cities in the world. I've done it through Asia. I've done it in different parts here in Australia. I've done various challenges with it. I've done it in the more natural game kind of way that you hear talked about. I've done it at night, in day, coffee shops, clubs, lots of different ways. And I've learned a lot. Just to be honest, this has been one of the things that's really made a difference for me. And in saying this, I will just be authentic with you and say I'm a little bit self-conscious about making this video, because I know how easy it can be to make a judgment when these terms are used, like approaches, cold approach, just the whole thing. I understand how easy it is to just have that sort of yuck response where it's like, ugh. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't get enormous value out of it. It's led to me having a deeply fulfilling 2-year relationship. I'm not in that relationship anymore, but that girl is still one of my absolute best friends. I saw her last night, for example, and she's someone who I really genuinely love, and I would never have met her if I hadn't have met her on the street that day outside of a mall. I'm in a situationship kind of thing now with someone whom I really like, I really care about. It's very, very recent, but that was also through just meeting them out in public. And I could tell you 100 other stories of people I've met and either had dates with or had little flings with that have been really amazing as well. And I've also had those approaches that have literally had me go home on the train or on the tram and tear up because they've been so humiliating or so embarrassing. I've put myself in situations where like I've deliberately sought out the kinds of approaches that have been most uncomfortable and went to do them just to sit in the feeling of in my body of like really going into that social anxiety. And if you're one of my friends watching this, you know you've heard it 100 times. I've probably told you all those kinds of stories before. But let's get into some of what the most important lessons that I've learned from this have been. I think this will be really useful for you if you're someone who's getting into this yourself, or maybe it's just something to sort of find a bond with if you're going through this process and you just want to hear it from another guy's perspective. The first thing that I want to say, and there's no list, there's no order, I'm just free associating here as per usual on this channel, but so no order here, just saying it as it comes up. The first thing that comes to mind is that I guess I would call this one, you think you can't, but you can. That's one of the most important things I've learned, again, not just in social dynamics and relationship dynamics, but just in general about life from doing this. The level of fear and difficulty for me when I started out on this was, I would say, not quite extreme, but it was definitely on that end of the spectrum. It wasn't, I'm not a highly extroverted guy naturally. I would say I'm more ambiverted, but it was really, really difficult. It was to the point where I'd go out and I'd walk around a mall or the streets for 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes, and I'd maybe do one bumbling approach, embarrass myself, probably embarrass the girl, and then skulk away. And that was probably 3 or 4 years ago when I started out. The sense that I couldn't was very prominent. I really want to push that forth here to give you a clear sense of like how much I felt like I couldn't do it. The only thing that was getting me going through it was I had a vision, and the vision was I'm going to get myself to the point where I can have these kinds of connections with people. I know that I can, but the emotional sense that I couldn't was very, very prominent. So what I've learned doing this over 1,000 times in all these different circumstances is there's a feeling sometimes it can be a voice, it can be a monologue. Other times it can just be a felt tension in the body. There can be a feeling of like, I can't do this, and that's actually not a real thing. It's not a real limitation, and that's a lesson that's going to serve me for the rest of my life in any endeavor. It's a huge shift in consciousness when you realize that a lot of the things that are confining you, so far as you see them, are actually just limiting beliefs. And that if you really wanted to, if you were really persistent about it, and you were willing to go in and be honest with yourself, you're willing to put a bit of backbone into this, you can actually do whatever it is that you want. Even if this isn't just focused towards men. If you're a woman watching this, just out of interest, a lot of my audience are women as well. If there's something that you feel like is really preventing you, I want you to understand as a lesson from this, you can do the thing. You can go talk to the person. You can build the relationship. Even though it feels like there's a barrier there, it's an artificial barrier that's constructed by your mind to give you the feeling that you're not able to because you want to feel safe. It's a comfort zone. And although we're not dismissing it, we definitely want to acknowledge it and listen to what that fear has to say. But it's important to create the distinction between the felt sense of fear and challenge and then identifying with the notion that you're not able to do something. So I'd say that's the first thing I've learned through doing this, that there's no actual real limitation. And some of the best days that I've had where I've met amazing people, had some really interesting experiences, even when I haven't spoke the same language as people, it comes from being able to just center back on your intention and keep going, being consistent. So that's the first thing I would say comes up for me there. You might not feel like you can, but you can. It's there. You just need to keep at it. I heard someone say recently that Joey Lott channel here on YouTube, it's really cool. He says in one of his videos, I really like, he says, you have two superpowers, intention and attention. And I tend to agree with the guy. If your intention's clear and you're paying attention to it and you're consistent, you can move through it. So don't limit yourself with it. That's a huge lesson that I've learned for myself. Another lesson that comes up to me is that your view of how valuable, attractive, or good that you are does not determine other people's view of that. It's not the same thing. Like, how attractive that you feel you are, it obviously helps if you have a level of confidence in yourself and you have the ability to go and put yourself out there and speak from the heart and be authentic, and especially if you can have fun and relax and make her feel good in the interaction. That's really what it comes down to. When you're going to speak to women, you want them to feel comfortable and you want them to feel like they're having a good time. They should be having a good time. At the end of the day, this isn't about conquering or being right or achieving something. It's about building amazing connections with amazing people. And that's done oftentimes through fluidity, fun, authenticity, and all the other emotions that aren't fun. It's all that, being honest about what comes up. The last video I made, I spoke about why it can be so difficult for men to be vulnerable. Go check that out if you haven't already. It's about being able to express all those things that come up. But point being, your view of who you are and where you place yourself against where you place her, if you're doing it like that, if you're putting her on a pedestal, in other words, it's not that you're completely dismissing that thought. Again, there's a reason that your mind constructs it like that, and it's a fantastic pointer to turn in and look at your beliefs and values. But it's important to know, nevertheless, that that doesn't determine how she views you. You have no fucking idea how she experiences you. You might go up and, in your mind, you're kind of dorky. I'm kind of a dorky guy. You might go up and, yeah, you're kind of dorky, and yeah, now you don't have the big muscles, and you don't have a nice watch or whatever it is, and maybe you're wearing some beads like this or something. You don't have a lot of money, whatever it is. You have all those things, and you, given your level of identity, you evaluate yourself based on those things, and then there's this subtle assumption that other people must feel like that about me as well. It's not true. When you go up to her feeling like that, she might actually feel like, from 10 seconds into the interaction, she might feel like this is a guy I'm really interested in. Right? She might be directly attracted to you right away. She might not be. You might actually be feeling pretty good that day, feeling pretty confident and pretty suave, and you go up and she might just, within even seeing you come over, she's already decided no way. And that can be for a million other reasons. Right? It's not really about you. It's about you in the aspect that, yeah, you're a participant in this interaction, obviously, and hopefully you're leading the interaction, but there's a million reasons that she might feel the way that she could feel. So don't assume that your level of value and attractiveness, how good you are in conversation, these things are all just objective facts that she's experiencing as well. Or that, and again, this can apply in social situations as well, that someone else is thinking about you as well. Job interview, whatever. You have no idea how other people experience you. And even when they tell you how they experience you, the words are merely a reflection of what's going on in their complex, dynamic, unique human experience. And thank God we have individualized versions of that so the world can be held together. It also seems to be the thing that rips the world apart. But we have our own perspective, so you don't really fully understand how that person feels about you. So don't take that as a metric as for how you're going to be, how good the result is going to be, or how good the conversation is going to be. Be yourself, show up, be honest. That's the thing that it really comes down to. And have fun as much as you fucking can, please. If this isn't an advice video, this is a what I've learned video. But if I could put one part of advice out there, it's that you don't need to be James Bond. You don't need to be some Quentin Tarantino character when you go up and meet a girl. You don't need to try hard, right? Just be yourself. I'm a bit goofy naturally. I think there's a part of me that's quite stern and quite particular. That's more of the contemplative side that might come out with my friends or just like when I'm by myself. But there's another part of me that I forget a lot of things. I'm kind of goofy. And that's an aspect that I want to lean into in my relationships, because I want to give a really clear depiction of what I'm like as a man, not just what I feel like I should be. So there's that. And touching on a little bit of that point there, the next thing that I'll say is that you're being rejected. When that happens, and if that happens, what I've learned, there can be an assumption that then that's just entirely about you. And what you don't know is that there's infinite other reasons why that might be happening in that moment. She might have really bad experiences with men in general. She might have just broken up with someone. She might be in a relationship with someone, but she might feel shy and afraid to tell you because she does admire that you came up and spoke to her. She might be having the worst fucking week of her life, and it's not that she's not attracted to you, but she's not open to having a conversation right then and there. She might just not really like the cut of your jib. But you know, it doesn't say anything about you. There's a million reasons, neurologically, genetically, historically, spiritually, why she might not be resonating with you at that time. And it's important not to take that to heart as though it's a determinant for who you are as a person. So that's another thing there that I think's really been valuable to learn, is that just because of the kind of interaction that you have with her in that moment, that doesn't really say or determine anything about you. Yeah, sure, there's data that you can take from your interactions, and there are common denominators that you start to notice over time that are useful. But when it actually comes down to it, you'll never really fully understand the reason she is or isn't into you. With my ex-girlfriend, she is someone who she's not overly expressive about how she feels. She shows her love more through like gift giving and acts of service, where I'm a lot of like words of affirmation and quality time. And for her, like I actually sometimes would feel insecure because I never really knew how she felt about me. And it was only really later on realizing that she would express those things, but she would never express them in the way that I would, because I express those things with a lot of oomph behind them. Like if I like you, if I feel good around you or about you, you're going to feel that from me. You're going to hear that from me. I'm going to be able to tell you really directly why I feel like that, because that's what comes natural for me. I use my voice to articulate those things, where she would do it more through gratitude, act of service kind of thing. So sometimes people have complex, different ways of functioning. Don't just get the sense that here's who you are because an interaction went a certain way, or because a person has a different way of communicating than you, right? Let life be nuanced and varied, and accept some of the mystery. If there are common denominators, take them as data, but don't even depend on that. It's about keeping things fresh and fluid. So that's another thing. Maybe the last one that I'll say here is, and I think this is really important, especially for younger guys. This is something that I've struggled with a lot. And I still find that this comes up quite a lot. And it's a bit hard to admit sometimes because it makes me feel like kind of an asshole. But I just want to be honest about it. Because I guess there's been so much time and interest and energy put into this for me, I've often found it a little bit difficult to understand what I really want out of this, because I think that mixed signals and drives and needs get crisscrossed. Like, obviously at some level we're physical beings, and if you're not asexual, you do want to have high quality sexual experiences with people who you find attractive. That's a part of a relationship and a connection, of course. But then on another level, it's not really about that much, because after you have sex, do you really feel entirely fulfilled at the deepest level of your being? Like for me, that's an obvious no. One night stand can be fun, but it's not necessarily that fulfilling for me, to be honest. But having a really in-depth conversation, sharing more about myself, learning more about that person, And even like those little things where like that person, they're not even explicitly sharing something, but you just notice something about them. And that, like, I don't know about you, but for me, that just, there's so much energy that radiates out from people's little gestures and things that are really authentic to them. And that's not something that you just usually get from like having fun in a one night stand. So it's sometimes I've been a bit confused about knowing what I really want. And the lesson over time has been that there's actually at the bottom of it more of a desire for authenticity, a high quality relationship and genuine connection. That's always going to be more fulfilling than a fling. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have flings, like in my mind anyway. This is obviously just coming from my perspective. I'm saying you more proverbially. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. So please take that in the way it's intended there. There's not really anything that satisfying about strings of flings. I was a poet and didn't know it. Right? It can be fun, and sometimes you might need to go through that. But I do think, just for me anyway, it's been important to ask myself, what is it that I really actually want from a connection? And am I really fulfilled by just having one night stands with people or having friends with benefits kind of relationships? What is it that's wanted most honestly? And if you honestly come to the conclusion in yourself that you just need more sexual experience, whether you're a man or a woman, and you want to go out and just have more of that, and the other person's consenting and they feel the same way and they want the same thing, then awesome. But being able to be honest about what it is that you really want through a connection is paramount, right? Instead of just getting lost in superficial shit, because sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I've got like a hot girl with me, I wonder how my friends are, like, yeah, I feel good because now I don't have that insecurity. So it's almost like you have that dark Spider-Man suit on, you're like, oh, I don't feel insecure, I can just go talk to these people, I can walk into a group of people and just start chatting. Like, yeah, it's cool that you have the confidence to do that, but I think it's important to also check in with our own heart and turn in and find that sense of what we authentically want in the connection, because that's the thing that's really going to bring you the fulfillment. And you don't want to turn into some Charlie Sheen 2.5 Men character where, you're just kind of endlessly caught in this difficulty with intimacy and caught in being able to really say what you want and express to people. That can get very tiring over time, and it can start to feel really lonely. It's no uncommon trope, the idea of someone who's with a lot of people but feels lonely inside, because the connection comes more through actual intimacy, not just the physical aspect. So that's another thing there. I might make more parts of this because there's quite a lot I could go into here with details and stuff. I definitely won't be going into how-tos. There's more than enough amazing content out there that does. There's a great resource channel called The Natural Lifestyles. If you're a guy and you're interested in that, I'd recommend also the book Models by Mark Manson. And there's a great 3-part series on actualize.org by Leo Gura going into this on men. So there's some resources that I think are really valuable and stay true to principles. They're ethical. They're not misogynistic, weird red pill strategies at all. They kind of just go more into the basics of connection with people and how to communicate. So there's some resources I would recommend. But I might go into more just opening up on my experience about this. So that's everything for today. Thank you everyone who's given super thanks. Thank you for everyone who's donated on PayPal and the videos, and thank you for the emails, and just all the new stuff has been like really encouraging. So I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. If you got value out of, or you enjoyed today's video, I appreciate you subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, liking the video, sharing this to anyone you feel like might get value out of it. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I will see you very soon.